On a quiet June morning in 2001, a 19-year-old Nebraska native set out on what should have been a routine walk to meet a co-worker at his old high school. But he never arrived. And since that day, no one has seen or heard from Jason Jolkowski again. Today, we're exploring one of the most baffling disappearances we've covered so far. A young man who left home for work and simply vanished. Jason's case has haunted his family, friends, and investigators for over 2 decades. Despite exhaustive searches, countless interviews, and a trail that's gone cold, his story remains an unsolved mystery. But behind this tragic disappearance is also a story of hope and resilience, a family determined to seek answers and help others who find themselves in the same nightmare. Join us as we unravel the events leading up to Jason Jolkowski's disappearance, the theories surrounding his case, and the lasting legacy his family has built in his name. Welcome to Fireside Unsolved, Episode 116, The Unsolved Disappearance of Jason Jolkowski. Jason Jolkowski was the kind of person you might not notice right away, but once you did, you'd never forget him. Born on June 24, 1981 in Grand Island, Nebraska, Jason was the eldest of 2 boys, raised by Jim and Kelly Jolkowski in a close-knit, hard-working family. Described by his parents as considerate and generous, Jason wasn't one to seek the spotlight. He preferred to keep a low profile, but when it came to helping others, he always stepped up. Kelly, his mother, would often recall how Jason would go out of his way to lend a hand, even to strangers. He was shy, quiet, and deeply introspective, yet his intelligence shone through in unexpected ways. Jason didn't have a large circle of friends, but those who knew him spoke highly of his kind and gentle nature. In many ways, Jason was wise beyond his years, with a quiet strength that was easy to overlook. By the early 2000s, Jason Jolkowski found himself at a crossroads. He had put a pause on his college education at Iowa Western Community College in Council Bluffs, Iowa. A tough decision, but one that made sense at the time. His family simply couldn't afford the cost to keep him enrolled. Still, Jason didn't let that stop him from pursuing his passion. While attending college part-time, he worked as a DJ for the school's radio station. For Jason, this wasn't just a hobby, he actually loved it. And for a while, he dreamed of making a career out of it with hopes of becoming a radio DJ for KIWR, a station that served the Omaha metro area. But dreams have to wait sometimes, and Jason knew that. He was determined to go back to school when the time was right. In fact, he'd recently landed a job as a customer service representative at CTEL Corporation, a position that not only paid better than his current job, but also came with a tuition reimbursement program, a step toward making his dream a reality. But at least for now, life was simpler for Jason. He was working at Fazoli's, a local Italian restaurant, and living with his parents in the Benson neighborhood of Omaha, on the corner of 48th and Pinckney Streets. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a stepping stone. It was the morning of June 13, 2001, and 19-year-old Jason Jolkowski's day started like any other, until the unexpected happened. He received a phone call from Fazoli's, the local restaurant where he worked, asking if he could come in early for his shift. Jason, ever the reliable employee, agreed without hesitation. But there was a problem. His car was in the shop and wouldn't be ready in time. Walking to work wasn't exactly an easy option either. Fazoli's was over 4 miles away. Undeterred, Jason made arrangements with a coworker to give him a ride. They decided to meet at a familiar spot, Benson High School, a school both Jason and his coworker had once attended. It was only half a mile from Jason's house, a short walk from his home. At around 10:45 a.m., a neighbor, Chester Link, saw Jason outside, helping his younger brother bring the trash cans in from the curb. It seemed like a typical moment, just an ordinary task on a day like every other. Afterward, Jason was seen walking in the direction of Benson High School. By 11:15, his coworker had arrived at the school waiting to pick him up. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Jason never showed up. His coworker called his house concerned, thinking that maybe he was running late or had gone back home for something. But when she phoned, Jason wasn't there, It was like he had vanished somewhere in the short walk between his home and the high school. And from that moment on, Jason Jolkowski was never seen again. As hours turned into a full agonizing day, Jason's parents, Jim and Kelly Jolkowski, began to realize something was terribly wrong. But like so many other parents in that situation, they believed they had no choice but to wait. The common misconception that you must wait 24 hours to report a missing person held them back from contacting the police right away. It wasn't until the next morning that they made the call, desperate for help, yet unaware that those precious first hours were already slipping away. When authorities finally got involved, they initially brushed off the case. In their eyes, Jason was a 19-year-old adult and possibly had decided to run away from his life in Omaha. It took a staggering 10 days before investigators began treating his disappearance with any real urgency. But, in the meantime, Jason's family and friends never wavered. They knew him too well. Jason was not the type to run away. His family meant everything to him, and things in his life were on track. The mystery deepened when police looked into the area where Jason had last been seen. The 8 blocks between Jason's home and Benson High School were quiet, residential streets. Not the kind of place where someone could simply vanish without a trace. There was little traffic, no major disturbances, yet security camera footage from Benson High confirmed what no one wanted to believe. Jason never arrived at the school that day. When Jason left home that morning, it's believed he only had his cell phone and maybe $60 in his pocket. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Nothing was missing from his room. No signs that he had packed or planned to leave for good. As the days passed, police interviewed everyone they could think of, friends, family, neighbors, co-workers. But they were left with more questions than answers. No one had seen Jason after that brief moment when his neighbor spotted him walking toward Benson High School. No one reported any suspicious activity along the quiet streets that day. There were no leads, no clues, no sign of struggle. It was as if Jason had vanished into thin air. There was no forensic evidence to analyze, no circumstantial evidence to chase down. Jason's cell phone, silent, his bank account, untouched. There were no red flags in his life, no troubling behavior, no interest in partying, and no history of drug or alcohol use. Jason wasn't the type to fall into risky situations. With no other suspects and no evidence to follow, Jason's disappearance became a haunting mystery. A case with no answers and no trace of the 19-year-old who once seemed to have a bright future ahead. One of the officers involved in the case, a seasoned investigator with over 3 decades of experience, would later say that Jason Jolkowski's disappearance was the most baffling case he had ever seen. In a situation like this, where there are no witnesses, no evidence, nothing to work with, speculation is all that remains. And the leading theory, the one his family reluctantly believes, is chilling. They suspect that Jason may have been lured into a vehicle by someone that day, someone who had no intention of letting him return home. From there, the most likely scenario is grim, that Jason was murdered. The Omaha Police Department continues to classify the investigation as open and active, but after all these years, it's considered a cold case. Despite their best efforts, no promising leads have surfaced, and the mystery of what happened to Jason Jolkowski endures, casting a long shadow over the lives of those who knew and loved him. In the wake of their unimaginable loss, Jim and Kelly Jolkowski chose to channel their grief into action. They founded Project Jason, a nonprofit dedicated to providing assistance and support to the families of missing persons. Their mission is to ensure that no family ever feels as lost and helpless as they did in those early days of Jason's disappearance. But they didn't stop there. They lobbied tirelessly for Jason's Law, a measure that would have a lasting impact on how missing person cases are handled in Nebraska. In 2005, their efforts paid off when the Nebraska legislature passed the law, leading to the creation of a statewide database for missing persons, a crucial tool for families and investigators alike. Yet, despite the progress they've made in helping others, the pain of not knowing what happened to their own son never fades. Jim and Kelly remain hopeful that one day they will have the closure they so desperately need, the definitive answers about what happened to Jason. Now, over 2 decades later in 2024, the Omaha Police Department continues to investigate his case. But for Jason's family, the search for truth and for justice is far from over. Despite the tireless efforts of his family, friends, and law enforcement, the mystery of his disappearance remains unsolved. If you have any information about Jason Jolkowski's case, please contact the Omaha Police Department at 402-444-5600. Any tips could be the key to solving this cold case and bringing closure to Jason's family. Thank you for joining us as we continue to explore the stories of the unexplained and mysterious. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Fireside. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.